When we were kids, we used to go to the cinema of Saturday morning, and we saw all these films, Charlie Chaplin and all that, and one of the films we see was Peak Freen's Factory, because that took my imagination. And then when I left school about 18 months after, I went straight to Peaks for the job. And then there was one job there called trimmers. They used to take all the ashes away. It was a lousy job. We've ever had that. Yeah, Bermondsey smelt in those days. You had the leather tanneries, you had the glue factory, you had the beer, Peak Freen's, the biscuits. Oh yes, you got a nice lot of smells.
This was very industrial, Bermondsey was. You had Shuttleworths and you had so many factories. You had Fevers and, you know, like Tin People.
Yeah, there used to be a lot of other factories around here. I mean, you name any food, it was made around here. I mean, there was a chocolate firm on the corner of Gamble Road.
I think this is about the last of the factories to go.
This is the last remaining factory. It's history, this factory. Everybody knows Peak Freen's. Bermondsey was where it began, and that's where people know it from.
The Bermondsey factory is best known for the manufacture of sweet biscuits, savoury biscuits and Christmas puddings.
Peak Freen's biscuits were well known, weren't they? You know, everybody bought Peak Freen biscuits.
The manufacture of sweet biscuits starts with the arrival of flour.
Something in excess of 100 tonnes of flour and 100 tonnes of sugar a week. Fats probably be 40 to 50 tonnes a week.
We have quite a large electronic control panel controlling all the bulk handling, the solids, the fats, and that sort of thing.
It automatically feeds the sugar, the flour, automatically weighs it, measures out the liquids, the fats, and the syrup, the water, hot water, cold water. So, you know, really went to town on this panel that they brought in. Yes, I should think so, because, I mean, there was a lot of walking about. I mean, and the chaps used to come along with sacks of flour, running backwards and forwards, so there was a lot of hard work, and people really had to work hard in those days to earn their money.
The ingredients basically haven't changed at all, apart from the fact that we've moved more in...
The flour used to come in 10-stone bags, and that's why we call the mixers now by the sack, because one sack is £140 of flour. We used to have dozens of different flours, or different grades for different type of biscuits. Yeah. Now we have a biscuit, just a one flour. We call it biscuit flour, or we call it 1C, but it's just the same.
And they used to get the chaps running along with hefty great 200 weight bags of flour and tipping them in the mixer, and then a bucket of water going, and then they just have a feel to see if it was right.
The mixer used to be in the floor. They were very, very low, about 2 foot off the floor, and we used to tip everything down into the mixer.
Everything used to go by hand. Flour by hand, sugar by hand, fat by hand, and water.
Because that was where experience count. I mean, these days they press a button and they hope that everything comes down right.
You couldn't get a job in the mixer unless you started 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 at night. We used to work a 12-hour day, plus Saturdays cleaning mainly, or sometimes production. We used to do nothing but think about 65-hour weeks.
All the man on the mixer is supposed to do is to push one button and say, I am ready to receive my load. And then he gets the whole recipe, which is given him by the control panel.
Mostly everything's press button. So all you do is to put all the ingredients, press the button, and you mix for 2 or 3 minutes, slow, 2 minutes fast. You open up the mixer, and the dough is tested, ready to drop.
But they want a bit of oatmeal which has to be loaded in by hand, a bit of special sugar, which has to be loaded in by hand, until we've almost destroyed, in some biscuits, we've destroyed the mechanical handling altogether, the automatic.
Let's say number one, there's 3 mixers an hour, and each mixer makes 1/3 of a tonne. So you're making a tonne an hour, and you're doing
modern technology, otherwise you'll get left behind. And of course another thing is that as modern technology is introduced, you're going to reduce the number of people.
We've looked back in our records and we think there was something around 3,500 people employed at Bermondsey at that time. Many things were done by hand, and labour was cheap.
And we used to have what they call dough breaks, which was seen in the 1906 film, where they would roll the dough backwards and forwards, cut it to a slab, and then bring it round on the machine on the trolley, and then put it onto the machine, feed it that way.
Till we got to the bakehouse, and it was a hell of a noise, and all overhead belts and trucks everywhere. They had a steam engine down in the boiler house, and before I went there, it used to drive all the lot. They had to ring a bell right the way through the bakehouse to let them know it was starting up.
There was a lot of family ties. I mean, my father worked here before me. He started around about 1912. So he worked here 50 years, and because I had several aunts and uncles that worked here, and then eventually I got a job for my wife here.
In the film, we see the biscuits actually being cut out individually by a cutter, and other ladies putting them onto trays.
It must be terrible. It must be very, very hard. I wouldn't like it.
I came to Pete Freen's because my sister worked here, and my mother was very poor at the time. She had quite a few children, and so I had to give up needlework, the idea of going to needlework, and go to Pete Freen's because I was earning more money, which was 12 and threepence when I started here. And that was a full-week work, including Saturday morning.
Saturday morning was part of your job, 5.5-day week. It was hard times and longer hours, and when I came here it was 48 hours a week. Now they work 37.5.
It's not like that now, and things much easier now. Mark you, when I came here in 56, it was near enough. Most of those machines that I seen that film were still here. Yeah, true. And so in those days, most of the work was carrying on. There wasn't so much people here like what was in that film, but there was quite a lot.
It's interesting to note that many of those people were young people below the age of 18. This was quite simply an economical decision, because when young people reached 18, they were entitled to an adult rate of pay, and the firm in those days felt that they were better to employ young people at cheaper rates of pay than employing adults at full rates of pay.
And the biscuits, when they came off a machine, they were stamped out with the reciprocating cutters, and they were timed so that they came down the web, and then there was a gap after each tray, so that then they were lifted off from the tray, and then they were placed in the oven by one or two youngsters, perhaps at the beginning of the oven. And they went through and came out the other end, and they were lifted off and put into racks until they were ready.
The job they gave us, we was given a pair of felt holders because the wires were hot, and all we had to do was to pick the wires up from the machine as they come down, foot loaded with biscuits, take them over to the oven, let a chap put them in the oven, then we had to go back for another one. It was a treadmill all day long, backwards and forwards, and we done a 10-hour day then.
Things have changed